got to walk around and get some snacks. This is Emily Helzer. She'll be giving our next presentation. She is awesome. I got to work with her over this past summer. She was my mentor. I learned a lot from her. She is amazing at wireframes. So I hope you guys learn a lot. And yeah, I'll let you take it from there.
Good morning. So like Katie said, I'm Emily. I'm an engineer with Target, and I work on a team that's responsible for the internal application for the visitors and just managing them within the headquarter locations. Our application has front end and back end work, where I mostly work on the front end, developing the look and usability of the application we're supporting. Today I'm going to be talking about, there we go. Today I'm going to be talking about the role of a user experience designer and why it's important. We will also talk about how a product goes from an idea into development. Sorry about that. And lastly, we're going to do a little interactive design session where you will all be business partners, and I will be the user experience designer. So first, let's define user experience. User experience is the overall experience a person has while interacting with the application. And the designer that curates that user experience could be one person or it could be a team, but they curate a solution so that the user has a meaningful and positive experience with the application. So what does a meaningful experience then look like? There's multiple things to think about, like when you're creating that experience, but some things to keep in mind is one, the accessibility. Say your application has a lot of color in it, but your colors are very of the same hue. So think about someone who's colorblind. Maybe they're not able to exactly see what thing they should be clicking on because everything looks the same. So just keeping in mind accessibility, and obviously accessibility means other things besides color blindness, but just having that in the back of your mind so that everyone is able to use your application. Another thing is interactions. So you probably don't really think about it, but a lot of the applications have the same gestures, whether it's swiping between pictures or scrolling, and that's done through research. When you're developing an application, there should be some things that you kind of mimic so that the learning curve is less steep when you are introducing your application to a new audience. Another thing is the look and feel. So because I'm a Target, I feel obligated to say that I think Target has a very strong presence in the look and feel department. When you go into the store, they're really capturing you to have a positive buying experience with their colors and their fonts and just how you feel, while you're walking in the store. And another thing is that they really do the same, or they, strive to do the same thing while you're shopping online, whether it be on the mobile app or in the website. As you can see, in 2007, their website, there's a lot of words. It wasn't very fun, whereas in 19, they had more pictures, less words, and just a lot brighter colors. One thing I just kind of find interesting is all the words that are on the left in that 2007 picture. You're not buying words, you're buying products, and that's what you want to see. So in 2019, you can definitely see the difference in the layouts and just usability that the user is going to be able to interact more with the website. And lastly is a clear objective. What do you want your user to accomplish during this? And will they be able to know that they've accomplished something? Making it clear and concise, and just the less amount of headaches possible, if that makes any sense. All right. Oh, sorry. Okay. Technical difficulties. So I joined Target a little less than a year ago. However, the team I'm on is about 2 years old. Since the team is relatively young, I've been involved with a lot of the design process and communication between the developers and the business partners who drive what the product will look like. Although I wasn't a part of the initial design, I've been involved with a lot of, although I wasn't involved with the initial design, I can imagine a lot of ideas were bounced around before a session was even drafted. Since each of you have a general idea of now what your hackathon idea will be, let's take a minute and jot down some of your user experience ideas that you might have thought of so far. Like, how will you incorporate accessibility? Or is there a certain flow you want your user to follow? I don't know if you're familiar with wireframes, but I think it'd be a good idea to just kind of sketch out a flow chart of what you want the flow to be for your application. In the end, how do you want your user to feel while they're using your application? So I'm going to pause, and hopefully you have a pen and paper around and you're able to just jot down some things real quick. All right, maybe some of you guys have kind of wrapped up, and maybe in the chat, write down or type some things out of what you kind of came up with. What are some ideas that you want to incorporate with the user experience? Definitely. Mina, hopefully I said that right, but just animations and making sure that it's interactive with moving frames or anything like that. Oop, I like the muted colors too. Just gives it a clean look for sure. Yeah, cool. All right. So I don't know if you're familiar with business partners, but the business partners are who drive more likely what your application will look like. So in order to effectively communicate what you want your design to be with you being the technical developers and the non-technical people being the business partners, how you communicate your design is through wireframes. At Target, we use Sketch, which is a Mac application, and a memorable experience I've had with showcasing, wireframes through Sketch while I've been at Target is that one time I was in a meeting with the business partners, and one of the business partners spoke up and said how he didn't like the verbiage of a title. So right then and there, we talked about what it should do, or the different verbiage it should be used, and then we changed it right then and there. So he was able to have instant gratification and being able to see exactly what that look and feel will be like, rather than waiting a couple more weeks for me to change what the application will look like. Other types of wireframe applications could be using Adobe XD, simply pen and paper. It's super old school, but it's also effective. You know exactly how you're going to draw it out, and you don't have to look for the shapes that you'll be using within another application. And lastly, there's this application called Miro, and that is what we are going to be using to create a rough design for what we're doing. Sorry, I lost my train of thought with some distractions. Yeah, so we're going to be using Miro, and I have a rough design I created, and you guys being the business partners, I want your opinions and ways that we can adjust this per se. Oh, I think I have it right here. So like I said, it's super rough. And when I was kind of doing a little bit of research on this, I wasn't able to find anything within the Bright Ideas Hackathon. So I thought maybe we should, create this super, super easy, website. So whether you want to use chat or you want to use your microphone, I'm open to ways we can better this. And again, thinking about accessibility and usability and interacting with it, how could we better this? Not all at once. Yeah, so Shamiska, how would you, what kind of font would you change, or what part of the fonts would you change?
Maybe like the colors, I feel like it's too flashy. And
yeah. Okay, so like I said, Miro is more or less likely what you guys will be using in a little bit. So there are some pros and cons, to using a web application for your wireframe. So there's a little bit of it, but like, what type of, I guess, feel were you trying to for?
I would
So
say
looks for target, put a good question of what's your target audience?
I would say it's more of everyone. I just want everybody to feel like it's a legitimate website. So
Yeah.
A more like professional look, I would say. Something like I would say something like graduate.
Cool. Yeah. And then Mary said to keep all the fonts and colors similar. How do you think, Mary, that the yellow looks?
I feel like compared to all the blue and the green you have on the bottom, it either change all the fonts to be the same as like the graduate font and maybe make everything else be black so it will also match the light bulb, or you could even, I think, changing from the yellow because it's like to maybe like a blue or something that's like appealing to like just look at, because yellow is a really bright color.
Yeah. I totally, wait, did you say graduate or grad? Yeah, I totally agree with all this. What about the location of where, your header is? What do you guys think about that? Okay, so we are kind of running out of time. So I guess the reason why I put it down here is to see if you guys would feel drawn. Like so these are pictures, sorry. These X's, that's just kind of how you represent a picture in wireframes. But, say this is there's a lot of content within this web page, and you have to scroll in order to find your, tabs per se, or your links. So just having this part on top, which is a very common thing for websites, you are able to have continuity between applications. Maybe something like this. Doesn't have to be perfect, obviously. Okay, this was very, very rough, as you can tell. But just by these little things, you know, you've kind of, you might have a little bit more buy-in per se. And then obviously there's way more iterations that you do within wireframes, but as you can see, just by changing the font to be consistent, as well as the colors to be more less flashy, I guess you could say, just kind of helps bring the entire website together. So yeah, with that being said, do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, this is so great, Emily. Thank you so much for giving this to us.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess the next thing we're actually gonna do is I'm gonna send out a link in the chat, and we're all gonna go to Miro.com, and you can sign in with like your Google account or yeah, you can make an account, or somebody on your team can just be the person who drives and shares their screen. So what we're going to be doing now is, with the ideas you came up from the brainstorming session, we're going to actually create like just like a picture of what the app is going to look like, or whatever your idea is. So I'm going to send you all out to breakout rooms unless anyone has any questions before we go out. Otherwise, I'll be hopping around all the rooms again to make sure everyone is doing well.
Oh, I do have a question for Emily.
Yeah.
So imagine that I'm kind of creating my own company and trying to create my own brand. So depending on the industry, should I go for more like images of people, or should I go for images of products? And how do you decide like what to actually put on your webpage that the consumer would actually want?
So you're going to create more of like a product website, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess my first suggestion would just be like, if you were to buy this product, what would you want to see? As well as, what is your target audience? What do you want, or the people that are going to buy it, you know, if they don't care how people look while they're using it or the enjoyment they have towards it, I stay true to showing off the details, or being able to have a clear picture of what it is rather than what the user is actually using, when the user is actually using it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Great question.